WB6AMT, the beginning of the Henderson Amateur Radio Club's Sunday Night Tech Net. When checking in, please give your call sign not real slow, but nice and clear. That helps things out. WB6AMT, tonight's topic, using commercial radios on the ham bands. The big question there is why and how do we do it? So we will attempt to answer those questions along with a lot more information for you. Stations wanting to check in, please call Net Control now.
KG7QWH, KJ7OWF, KJ7RNB, W3QQQ, KM4KORYI, N0DRT on Echo Link,
NY5AR,
Whiskey 7 JCK, November 9 BAT,
KS7URV on All-Star,
KK6DZ.
Okay, well, we'll take a break at this moment and run back up the list. There's a couple of stations that I didn't get all of the call signs, so please listen up when I call your what letters I did get. We'll start at the bottom here, KK6DC. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Doing great. Appreciate you doing this TechNet and look forward to the discussion. Back to you.
KF7URV.
Kilo Sierra 7URV, Mike, coming to you on a Motorola XDR 7550 into my sharing node.
Okay, thank you. Next station, I didn't get all the call, but I got N9. So that station, please come back and identify.
Good evening, sir. N9BAT, coming in on H2.
Okay, thank you very much. Next call sign, all I got was the last two letters of CK. That station, come back.
Whiskey 7, Juliet, Charlie, Kilo.
Thank you very much. NY5AR. Good hearing you in there, Vince, from Arkansas this evening.
Good evening, Earl. It's good to be back. Looking forward to your presentation here tonight.
Okay, thank you, Vince. N0DRT, Don.
N0DRT. The handle here is Ed, Tango Echo Delta from Iowa. Looking forward to your presentation tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know how I got Don in there, but thank you very much. Next station, KM4, and then I didn't get the last part. That station, come with their call sign, please.
Yes, Net Control. This is going to be Kilo, Mike, 4, Romeo, Yankee, India, and the handle is Scott.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. W3QQQ, Dave.
Good evening, Earl. I'm wondering if we can use commercial radios in the amateur band. Is that possible?
Well, I've heard it's been done by someone a long time ago, so we will have to delve into that. KJ7RNB, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Earl. Thank you for doing that, as always. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm sure that you're going to convince us all that we should buy another radio. It's okay with me, KJ7RNB.
Well, part of the discussion is going to cover some of that. It's not for everybody, but if your criteria does meet certain issues, then by all means, maybe a commercial radio would be the thing to serve you. KJ7OWF. Good evening, Linda.
Over to your presentation tonight. Sounds interesting. KJ7OWF.
Yeah, it'll be interesting as I envision the table with all the walkie-talkies there in the living room. KG7QWH. Good evening, Shane.
Earl, KG7QWH. Most of those radios on the table are Motorola's. KG7QWH.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's continue, see if we've got any additional check-ins before we start tonight's discussion. Call Net Control now. Call sign nice and clear.
KG7OFF.
Well, KG7OFF. Good hearing you in there, Joe. How are you doing?
Well, I'm hanging in there. I'm a little depressed, but need something to do, so I figure I'd listen in tonight.
Well, it's always good to hear your voice in there. Look forward to meeting up with you again face to face. Eyeball QSO. There was another station before you, however, it was breaking up a little bit. That station, try again, please.
KD7TII.
KI7HC.
Very good, Jim. KB7TII. Good hearing you in there. How are you doing?
Doing great. Ready to get smart on these commercial radios.
So am I. I just happen to have a little time on them, so I remember some of that stuff. AI KI7HZ, how are you doing this evening?
Great. Good to be on the net. Get away from these goblins and join the real world. But just doing fine. Coming through on an All-Star and can't wait to hear it. AI7HZ, back to you.
Hey, Alan, thank you. Any other stations? Call their control now.
K7KOB.
K7KOB. Good hearing you in there. Can I get your name, please?
Name is Adam, coming to you from North Las Vegas.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate that. One more call. WB6AMT. Any more check-ins?
Kilo WB67, Oscar Romeo November, Chris. KC6AGL, Orange County.
Well, good hearing you in there, Ray. KC6AGL. How are you doing this evening?
Hey, how's it going, Earl and the group? Good evening. Doing okay. I was out for doing a little shopping, and I'm headed back home. How's it going out there? Back to you.
Tonight's topic, you should have some input on. I look forward to some of your comments, maybe even a question or so. It's using commercial radio and ham channels. So hopefully you've got some input on that. Okay, the next station, I did get ORN, Oscar Romeo November. Please come back with your call.
Roger, this is Kilo Foxtrot 7, Oscar Romeo November, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate everybody checking in. This is going to be a fun one. I originally did this presentation 18 months ago, but we've got an awful lot of new people, and we've also got a lot of people that are, I hear on the radios using 7550s, 6550s, a lot of commercial stuff, so hopefully this won't be boring. We did add an awful lot of new stuff in the update yesterday, and the new pictures and stuff, so we're going to drop some of the older stuff, and we're going to cover this new stuff. As I said earlier, the big question I've got people is, well, why should I use commercial radios, and how do I do it? I'll be the first one to admit that putting a commercial, an older two-way radio on the air is not as easy as, going down to Gigaparts and seeing Gene. He'll fix you right up on anything you need, but that's not quite how you have to do it with commercial radios. Normally it takes proprietary software, oftentimes non-existent equipment. For example, programming some of these max tracks that I've got here on my base station. These radios are 35 years old, and even though they still work as well as they did 35 years ago, to program or add a new channel is a bit of a pain. It requires a DOS computer operating no faster than 12 megahertz, and the software is, of course, no longer supported or available. You have to find somebody that's got that. Sometimes it takes a lot of work. The newer programmable using Windows computers with the CPS is much easier. I'm going to list some of the pros and some of the cons. And after each group, I'm going to call for questions. So if you have a statement or a comment that you want to make, please jump in there. What I've found to be a pro is typically the quality of the construction of the device. We're talking about walkie-talkies that were made not for ham use, but for police, FBI, the military, this type of customer. So naturally, the specifications were quite high. The expectations were just as high. The radio was expected to perform for a number of years, meeting factory specs, so that the client or the customer received the most for their return on their investment, ROI. Commercial radios have a lot of accessories available, more so than amateurs. One of the positive things of used commercial stuff is the price. The prices are very good. Say an MX 300 series walkie-talkie was $1,100. A few years ago, you could get them for like $150. That's also an older radio that uses crystals. And programmable ones now are, example, Motorola XPR 6550. You get the radio for around $100, $125. New, it was $800 to $1,000. One of the things that I like, the serviceability. I had a volume control on-off switch go out on a 6550, so I merely ordered up a replacement part from Motorola. It was here in a short order, and you can replace that device, which is pretty typical. If anything's going to wear out on a radio that's 25 years old, it was the on-off switch volume. Programming capability is good. The nice thing about commercial radios typically is that they are analog and PMR. Some of them are analog and P25. It's a good combination. You get a quality radio on both modes. My favorite part is creatable zones with an unlimited number of channels per zone so that you can take advantage of all 1,000 channel capability and set it up to your advantage. I'll go into that zones a little bit later and how really convenient you can make that radio work. Any comments or questions at this point? Okay, you guys better not be silent on me tonight or I'll start calling the head count here. The cons. What are are some of the cons? Well, the first one is lack of manufacturer support. I mean, the radio's 25 years old, some of them 30 years old, or more. So you're not really going to find very much manufacturer support. Some of the accessories, you might find them, but they're going to be in pretty bad shape. They're going to be pretty beat up. Not always, though. So one of the cons that plagued a lot of the radios was that they were limited in channels. 32 channels was considered way more than they would need. And, of course, some of them had to be uses crystals in a small channel element as their frequency determining element. A lot of them are on one band only. The commercial radios, that is. There is some exceptions, the APX 7000, and we'll go into that a little bit later. Number of channels, like I said a minute ago. And then, of course, the programming software, which is really going to be difficult to find. People that have that, they try their best to take care of it. My DOS computer finally died about 10 years ago, so I was no longer able to use my RIB and the computer to program my radio, so I rely on seeing a friend who does have that. And there's a lot of people that can assist you on the air here in town when you want to try and get a commercial radio over onto ham band. WB6AMT. Any comments or questions? Get some topic on here.
KC6AGL.
Go ahead, Ray.
Quick comment here on why I use the commercial. I do a lot of hiking, a lot of organized expeditions, and I have to tell you that there's a lot more pros behind commercial radios than cons in that application. 3 weeks ago, I did an expedition to Mount Whitney. Long story short, we were going up about 5 hours, and I had to change gears. And I had my Motorola 7350E on me, and that's my crew radio. I use Motorola radios for crew and communications. It took a pretty hard drop. I want to get to this point. First of all, temperatures were around 12 degrees Fahrenheit. Super cold. Couldn't feel my face, couldn't feel my hands. The reason I dropped the radio is because I didn't realize that it was on my pocket area, not on my belt. And when I reached it, my hands were so cold I couldn't really grab it. It took a hard fall. And I'm like, oh no, I probably got some scratches on it or, whatnot. Not a scratch on the radio, to my surprise. I can assure you that the stuff we use on the amateur side cannot take that kind of a hit and survive. And that's why I use them. For me, the commercial radio comes in place because I'm looking for a high-trust situation. I need to trust the radio to work. I use the commercial radio. Now, I have nothing against the other radios. I have plenty of the other radios, the ham stuff that we all use. They're great radios. Have never had any issues with it. But if I'm going to go in a mission-critical situation where elements are unknown, I'm looking for a high-trust gear. And I consider the commercial radios to be trusted a little bit better. I just trust them a little bit better. Lasting, the battery, the unit itself is not going to go bad on me and that sort of thing. And that's why I use them, especially when I go on expeditions. Earl, microphone back to you, KC6AGL, Orange County.
Thank you, Ray. Well, you did touch on one aspect of those radios. When Motorola came out with the first portable I got from them was an old HT200. It was a huge radio. I dropped it one day hard while I was partially up on a tower. It hit a couple of the rungs going down, and I thought it was going to be history. Well, when I got down and looked at it, it was scuffed up a little bit, but the plastic didn't break. It had a gouge in one location where it looked like the plastic had been shaved out a little bit, but it didn't break off. It was very hard. And so some investigation, I found that the plastic they used was developed for the radios, and Motorola called it Cycolac. It was a very durable plastic. It could flex, but it kept its shape even when cold. Yeah, you touched on one of the good points there, Ray. Thanks for bringing that up. For any stations unfamiliar with what we do here, we use WB6AMT.com, the website. Up in the upper right-hand corner, if you click on the HARC TechNet, it'll bring you to our TechNet page, and just scroll down to tonight's address, just past the first part of the web page there. Picture number one is showing the Motorola XPR 4550 on the bottom, and the XPR 5550 on the top. The 5550 is current radio. It is 1,000 channel analog and DMR. You can remote hit it. In fact, that's how I got my mobile. I've got the transmitter receiver package in the trunk, and the control head or the front part of the radio mounted on a mounting bar there on the dash. Color display, a lot of front panel flexibility, which of course is dealt with in the programming software. You can assign the different buttons to what you want. The picture underneath it is a Motorola 4350. Yeah, it has a few more buttons there, but basically it's an older radio. It's probably got another. Tony would probably know this better than I do. I think it's probably got 15 more years on it than the top one there. Anyway, any comments or questions concerning either one of these radios or anything that like Ray was talking about? Please call Net Control now.
KS7URV.
KS7URV. Go ahead.
I would have to say one of the other cons when you're working with Motorola is depending on which customer service rep you get will determine how easy it is to get the programming software and the wideband endorsement, as these radios are just narrowband only with their main software. KS7URV, back to Net Control.
You are correct. The thing about the what's called the wideband entitlement, you can get entitlements for different functions that the radio can perform. For example, encryption, various different types of control for the trunking aspects of in the commercial service. So these entitlements, the wideband entitlement is not an additional charge, but it is a separate download. So you do have to download that when you buy the CPS. Original equipment software, WB6AMT.
Common KC6AJ.
Go ahead, Ray.
It's a small obstacle, but nothing that you can't, get over as far as programming is concerned, and of course, getting the entitlement in to be able to use it on amateur radio. Once you get past that, you're good to go. I have a 550 in a car. I've had this in 3 different cars. It's really hard for me to upgrade it because it works so well. That's what I use in the car. I do miss having dual band. I like to have a VFO. I like to have dual band and stuff like this, but everything comes at a cost. And the cost, the trade-off here is I'm taking quality over features. I'm also taking a radio that is DMR capable. These are the give and takes, right? You won't find a perfect radio, really. Give and take aspect of things work for each of us. There's no VFO. I can't put in a frequency on the fly, but I don't look at it anymore as a negative thing. I have 3 frequencies I talk on, and very rarely I have to tune in a new frequency, and I have a handheld in the glove box if I need to do that. Anyhow, back to you, Earl, KC6AJ, Orange County.
Okay, thank you, Ray. Okay, our next picture, 1B here, is just a little array there of some older HTs. There's MT500, which was one of my favorites. It was one of the prettiest radios. You're looking at the picture. The second one in from the right is a Motorola MX300 series. A lot of cops used the MX. So did the feds. Also the Navy there in San Diego used an awful lot of them. But there's HT220. That's an older one. Tony had some of those. He's probably our best HT220 expert on channel here. The one on the left, I don't recognize it, but it looks like it's from the HT100 series, so it possibly could be, or 200. Anyway, these radios were made with law enforcement or with local government, federal government in mind, which means that they had nothing but the best components, best design, and as we said earlier, the customers want to get the most for their return on their investment. FBI, DEA, DOJ used an awful lot of those MX300s, 330s. That one that you see there in the picture is an MS360. It is a 12-channel, or it looks like 12-channel, high-capacity battery. It even has multiple DL zones for different channels. So it was pretty, at the time, it was a pretty intense radio. If we have time at the end, I have a funny story that I'd like to share about the MX when we get to the end there. Any comments or questions from anyone else? Please call Net Control. Okay, picture number 2, Motorola XPR 6550. As you can see there, it's about $140. I've seen them as low as 115, 120. It's a good radio. As a matter of fact, I'm talking on a 6550 right now. I'm set at 5 watts, going into an external antenna, and it's a 1,000-channel radio, DMR and analog, and I've had this one for a number of years, and it still performs just as well as it did the day I got it. Any comments or questions? Call Net Control. Okay, picture number 3 shows a comparison between the Motorola 6550 and the Vertex, standard Vertex. As you can see, the Vertex is a bit wider, kind of bulkier. One thing that Motorola did do is they looked at the ergonomic effect that the radios had, where it was comfortable to grab it. It has certain notches on the side for accessories, like the accessory connector, which out of habit, when you grab the radio, that would sit just above your thumb, where the thumb and your index finger is, and that would bring the push-to-talk button right in line with your index finger on the other side. So, I worked for Motorola for a number of years, and so some of this insight I got while working with them. Okay, some of the number 4s, chargers and accessories. One of the things I did like about the Motorola radios was that if you had a converticom, it allowed you to take that radio off your hip when you got in the car, slide it into the converticom, and now it would charge the radio, automatically make contacts on the side connector for a amplified speaker. It also had an external microphone and also connected to the antenna. So now your portable just became a high-performance mobile. This particular charger is relatively new. It's an Empress charger, which handles the battery chemistry for the newer batteries. Any comments or questions at this point? Please call Net Control. Okay, let's go down to number 4A. Basically, that's a Motorola speaker mic. In fact, this is a OEM Motorola microphone. The cost on them runs between about $35 to $45. Now, the next picture below that, it looks the same, but it's a Chinese knockoff and costs $13. There's a reason why they charge $13, and then there's a reason why Motorola charges $45. Well, I had a guy come up to me one day at the swap meet. He said, well, I don't like commercial radios because I can't get a dual band one. I said, what? I'm sorry to hear that because, they're available. Picture number 4B shows you a dual band VHF, UHF radio. This is the APX 7000. Brand new. They run about $5,000. They are an incredible radio. You can get them on eBay and what have you for around $1,800 is about the cheapest I've seen them.
KG7QWH.
Go ahead, Shane.
Does Motorola have the converticoms for the 7550 or the 6550 radios?
Not that I'm aware of. The last converticoms I saw were for HT1200, something like that, or the Jedi series. But I'm unaware of that. The closest thing would be the mobile charger that I showed earlier. The nice thing about the mobile charger is it keeps the radio out of your way. It's not going to roll off the center console, or it's in the seat. Somebody just sit down. I mean, it's a great place to just get in the car, throw it in the charger, and it's there. Anything else, Shane?
No, thank you. You covered it. KG7QWH.
Okay, thank you. Picture number 5. What will $100 get you? The Wuxon was, I think, about $110. It's probably better than average of the import radios. I have noticed that the plastic enclosure is a better plastic. Okay, some of the things about a knockoff radio or non-commercial radio, of course, is the quality of both components and construction. There's a lot of discussion about, I've had my Baofeng for so many years. If you look at picture number 6, this is a picture of a spectrum analyzer looking at the radio after it had been dropped. And as you can see, even though you still have some center channel RF, you also have RF energy spread out across the entire spectrum now. Typically, that happens because when it gets dropped, the capacitors crack. That was a very vivid, very visual thing, and I wanted to make sure I grabbed that. I've been involved when I worked for Motorola, in testing, environmental testing, as well as shake tables, things of this nature, where they take the radio, and the radio is mounted to a transducer. This transducer is about the size of a kitchen table. They run an algorithm through it, and they will shake it, they will bang it, they will do all kinds of things to it. Of course, while it's doing this, the radio is being monitored. This particular picture is of the spectrum after the 3-foot drop test. Of course, you see it's nice and non-sporadic. All your energy is on channel. The interesting thing about commercial radios, the reason they're so expensive, is a lot of it in the design and the quality of the components, the manufacturing techniques. And a lot of it also is because of the testing. There used to be that every radio came with a production outline showing you every radio that particular radio's test results, how it scored, everything from audio, distortion, the audio output to RF, adjacent channel, all these different parameters. It was printed out so that you knew as a customer, this is what my radio should work like. And it does. Back in the day, they were designed to perform the same as the day they came out of the box during that life expectancy. So, most of them were 12 to 15 years. Some of them were 20. Some of the mobiles were life expectancy of 20 years. That's important. Like Ray pointed out earlier when he dropped it, and I've done the same thing. I've accidentally been up in a pickup truck unloading something, and my portable comes off, a good 6 or 7, 8 feet up off the ground, and it's just a matter of dusting it off, keying it, bring up the radio and put it back in my pocket. So, picture number 8 is kind of a funny deal there. The bottom line is, if you're using a commercial radio in the amateur band service, as far as the radio is concerned, it's almost like babying it, because it's never going to get treated like it would be in the construction site. They're meant to work, 8-10 hours a day in, day out, years in, year out. Has anybody got any comments or questions about anything right now? The 6550s is it's a good, reliable radio. It's inexpensive. A lot of hams use them. The 7550 is newer and there's a lot of hams in town here. I hear using them when they check into the net. So it's a popular radio also. A little bit more than the 6550, but still a great radio. If you see something that you want to get online, just make sure you are positive about some of the specifications and the conditions of the radio, especially if you're going to get into a band that you're unfamiliar with. For example, 900 megs. A lot of people are selling 700 and 800 megahertz portables. And on one of the ads, I said, hams love them. And I thought, boy, that's a blatant lie, because there's no way those radios will operate in the amateur band.
Anyway, 5AR has a question.
Go ahead, Vince.
Yeah, I happen to own a 6550. I've never attempted this, but can you connect a external antenna to that?
Well, that's the nice thing about the Motorola 6550 is that you can use there's a small adapter, an SMA. It's a reverse type SMA to BNC, and it screws right into the radio. In fact, that's what I'm using right now on this radio to connect to an outside antenna. The 7550, the newer radios, does not have that capability. It uses a stud mount antenna. Motorola did away with the SMA antenna. They wanted their salespeople to sell a portable and a mobile for people to put in their cars. So there are some ways to work arounds. There's a guy in California that's making an adapter that does allow people to connect an external antenna to that. So no matter what they do, hams will come up with something. Anything else there, Vince?
No, I think I'm okay. Sounds like I just need a regular SMA adapter, and I'm good to go.
You can't just do that. The SMA that is needed to connect to the 6550, if you look at the end of the female that's being screwed into the radio, most of the SMAs have a little ridge, about a 16th of an inch tall, around that outer where the bottom of the threads are. If you try and use one of those adapters, what will happen is when you screw it into the 6550, it's going to keep the adapter about a 16th of an inch away from the center pin, so it's not going to make contact. You can modify it. I put them in a drill press, and using a file, just carefully get rid of that ridge to where it's nice and flat across the back or bottom of that connector, and then it screws in just fine, and it works. Motorola does sell the adapter. I believe it's $37, but I prefer to make my own, and for $37, I think I can do probably 5 or 6 of them.
Okay, that's good information to know. So I'll just have to plow down that little ridge there, and then I'll be okay.
Any other questions or comments from somebody?
KJ7RN.
Go ahead, Steve.
I guess I have 2 or 3 questions. Well, first question is, I remember I think you and Tony were building some HTs for people that wanted to get involved with Motorola's. Is that a program that's still alive?
Oh, you're talking about the base stations? Yes. I have some here, 4550s. They're 1,000 channels. But yeah, we were trying to put those together for basically the cost of the radio. We spent
others when you get into the Motorola area?
The thing about a Motorola radio is it's designed to be extremely user-friendly. In other words, it's meant to fit a particular protocol or command set, depending on what the customers need, whether they're search and rescue, whether they're fire, whether they're police, whatever. As far as getting it that way, the programming software is very intense, incredibly diverse. As far as somebody else making something that is comparable, RF Harris makes a pretty rugged radio. General Electric has their commercial two-way line. Did that answer your question, Steve?
It does. It just seems to me, I mean, I'd love to get the quality of durability-wise and component-wise, and the audio, of course, is wonderful. But it seems like it's a relatively static radio. You know, you say, this is what I want, and then somebody does it, that does the code plug, does the programming, and what have you, which is convoluted. I don't know why they make it that way. Hams, someone will say, yeah, go to this frequency, let's do simplex, and you go, well, wait a second, if it's not programmed into my radio, you know, I can't go there. Or if a frequency changes or a PL component changes, you know, you can go in on the radios we're used to, non-commercial, and just make those changes and you're off to the races. But not so with the Motorola, it seems to me.
This all comes back to the user. Tony and I were discussing making this code plug. We wanted to come up with a code plug. It would work for everybody. In other words, you could have everything in there in Las Vegas and some other things. You being the user, if you program your radio and you don't program in all of the simplex channels, all of the standard simplex channels, then that's shame on you because you've got 1,000 channels. Why in the hell didn't you just program those in? I guess it's a mindset that you have to kind of get yourself into.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the information, and I'm always interested in the quality of the radio that I'm using. KJ7 RNB, back to you.
Yeah, I think the second paragraph or sentence from the bottom there, it says, you know, accidents do happen all the time, no matter how good you treat your equipment. And that's something that I've learned over the years that you don't plan on. You don't plan on dropping $1,000 walkie-talkie on the pavement, but it happens. Did you have another question there, Steve? I think you said you had 3.
No, I'm good. Thank you. You answered everything that I wanted to ask tonight. KJ7 RNB.
Very good, Steve. Any other stations, comments or questions? Please call that control.
AI7,
KC6H.
Okay, just a little noisy. I didn't quite catch the call, Simon. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Alpha India 7 Hotel Zoo. I know with the Coast Properties, I got rid of the Motorola phones and went to the Kenwood commercial phones. I don't remember what I bought. It was so long ago. But I know that quite a few of the properties changed, too. So I'm wondering, how would you rate the commercial radios that Kenwood put out? And, you know, are they more flexible in programming than the Motorola? The new Kenwoods that I got, which aren't commercial, they're fairly easy to program. Is there anything compatible with the Kenwood commercial compared to the Motorola?
Well, I got to be honest with you. I've never owned a commercial Kenwood. The only one that I have had any experience with was working and programming it was for the repeater for the Sun City Anthem Radio Club. Mark had the software. I don't know if there really isn't an issue with the software. As I mentioned earlier to Steve, it would behoove you to, if you're going to program something, get out a piece of paper and a pencil and make sure that you put in everything that you want. For example, when I program a radio for someone, and I don't just put in the repeater channel, I also put in a repeater reverse, and I also put in direct, so that if at some time the repeater goes down, you can still communicate with somebody that is talking on that repeater pair.
What I want today is not what I want tomorrow and next month. You know, and that's kind of why you're getting entrapped with the DMR and, you know, what does it have? Thousands of channels on that, and the ham radio on the amateur side. The Kenwoods are also the same way. So, but the thing is, unless you buy the key code and the software, which is extra money, the quality of Kenwood, I just don't see the difference. I do hear the difference in some radios, and yeah, I do agree with you. Some radios are definitely better than others. It just seems like, you know, when you throw in the cost of the radio and buying the software and that, but I do know that things change. And I have 1,000 right now, and I only need one, and I greatly reduced that one. But having the flexibility to program on the go is a plus for me, a strong plus.
Well, I understand what you're saying, Alan, and you right there are a good example of what one of my first statements when we started tonight's talk was. Some commercial radios aren't necessarily for everybody. Okay, we ran way past 9 o'clock, no doubt about it. Thank you, everyone. WB6 AMT returned the Henderson Amateur Radio Club's repeater network back to normal use. WB6 AMT 73.
This has been a production for the Henderson Amateur Radio Club of Nevada. Join us at W7HEN.org. Audio post-production by W3QQQ. Video by KJ7BBA. Copyright 2021. All rights reserved.